David and Goliath, a tale of faith and courage. In the ancient hills of Judea, where olive trees whispered in the evening breeze and sheep grazed on sun-warmed slopes, there lived a young shepherd named David. He was the youngest of 8 brothers in the family of Jesse, a man of Bethlehem. While his older brothers were tall and strong, admired for their physical prowess, David spent his days in the quiet fields, watching over his father's flock with a shepherd's staff in one hand and a simple sling in the other. David's life was one of solitude and contemplation. Day after day, he wandered the hillsides, guiding the sheep to fresh pastures and cool streams. The work was humble, often lonely, but David found peace in it. He would sit beneath the stars at night, his harp resting on his knee, and sing songs of praise that seemed to rise up to heaven itself. These weren't just any songs, they were psalms, poetry that flowed from a heart devoted to God. In those quiet moments, David felt a connection to something far greater than himself, a divine presence that filled him with courage he didn't yet know he would need. The shepherd's life had taught David more than songs. In the wilderness, he had faced dangers that would have terrified most men. Lions and bears prowled near his flock, seeking easy prey. When these beasts came, David didn't flee. With his bare hands and trust in God's protection, he had struck down both lion and bear, rescuing lambs from their jaws. These victories had forged something within him, a quiet confidence that God would never abandon him. Far from the shepherd fields, a conflict was brewing that had paralyzed an entire nation with fear. The Philistines, ancient enemies of Israel, had gathered their armies for battle. They assembled on one mountainside while King Saul and the armies of Israel positioned themselves on another, with the valley of Elah stretching between them like an open wound in the earth. For 40 days and 40 nights, something extraordinary and terrifying occurred. Each morning and each evening, a giant would emerge from the Philistine camp and stride into the valley. His name was Goliath of Gath, and he stood over 9 feet tall. He was a champion warrior, armored from head to toe in bronze that gleamed menacingly in the sunlight. The weight of Goliath's armor told the story of his power. His coat of mail weighed approximately 125 pounds of solid bronze, protection that would have crushed a normal man. On his legs were bronze greaves, and between his shoulders rested a bronze javelin. The iron point of his spear weighed 15 pounds by itself, and the shaft was thick as a weaver's beam. Before him walked an armor-bearer, carrying a massive shield that covered the giant like a bronze wall. Twice daily, Goliath would thunder his challenge across the valley, "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he kills me, we will become your subjects, but if I overcome him, you will become our subjects and serve us. This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." His mockery rang out over the trembling Israelite army. The reaction among Saul's soldiers was absolute terror. These were trained warriors, yet not one would accept the challenge. King Saul himself, who stood head and shoulders above his people, could not muster the courage to face this giant. For 40 days, morning and evening, the army of Israel remained frozen in fear, listening to Goliath's taunts, their shame growing deeper with each passing day. Meanwhile, in Bethlehem, David continued his shepherd's life, unaware that destiny was approaching. His 3 oldest brothers, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, had followed Saul to war, leaving David to tend the sheep. Jesse, their father, worried for his sons. He called David and gave him a task: "Take roasted grain and 10 loaves of bread to your brothers, and bring back word of their welfare. Take also these 10 cheeses to their commander." David rose early the next morning as the sun painted the hills golden. He left the sheep with another shepherd and loaded up the provisions. The journey to the valley of Elah would take him from peaceful pastures into a world of armies and fear. As he walked the dusty road, his thoughts were simple: deliver the food, check on his brothers, return home. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was moving into battle formation. The air was thick with tension and the sounds of men preparing for war. David left his supplies with the keeper of provisions and hurried to find his brothers among the ranks. Just as he reached them and began to speak, a familiar, terrifying sound echoed across the valley. Goliath emerged once again from the Philistine lines, his massive form casting a long shadow. He took his position in the valley and shouted his same defiant challenge, his voice booming across the hillsides. David watched as the Israelite soldiers, upon seeing the giant, turned and fled in great fear. The sight was stunning, an entire army, paralyzed by one man. The soldiers around David whispered among themselves, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." Even with such rewards offered, no one stepped forward. David listened to these words with growing astonishment. He began asking the men around him questions, trying to understand, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? In David's voice there was no fear, only righteous indignation that someone would mock the God he had worshipped beneath the stars, the God who had delivered him from lion and bear.